Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. I am thankful that you're here tonight. I'm going to open in prayer and then we'll get started. Thank you for coming. Shall we pray? Our Father in heaven, we thank you today for who you are and for all your hand has provided. God, we're grateful for a beautiful day and for health and strength and for our right minds. We thank you for this moment to come together and collaborate with other community leaders and church leaders with the hopes that we can affect change in our area, in our nation, in our world. But ultimately, we need you. We need your grace. We need your spirit. We need your wisdom. So be with us tonight as we try to inform and to mobilize those of us who are part of the community to be more active and more vigilant in making change. Would you be with us tonight in all that we say and do? Will you be glorified? In Jesus' name, amen. Again, I am Pastor Alexander, the senior pastor of the St. Luke Baptist Church, one of the best churches on this side of heaven. And we welcome you to our campus as we share again in some more community enriching and education moments. It's not, however, although I'm welcoming you to the St. Luke Baptist Church, this is not a St. Luke Baptist Church event. This is just the place hosting it. We thank God for all the other collaborating churches and community leaders and organizations that have come together, and hopefully by the end of the night, I will have an opportunity to acknowledge some of those other pastors, churches, and community leaders who've consented to come. Wednesday in the middle of the day is kind of a hard thing to do, stop your day to get somewhere by 6:30, and I'm thankful that you have done it. I'm also thankful for those people who are elected officials who have come, and these people who are here tonight are people who've done something that I try to always highlight, and that is a lot of times you see people come to the church during election season to be acknowledged for votes and for recognition, and you don't see them again until another election season, but not these tonight. They've kept their word, and I want you to remember that when you see their names at election time. They kept their word in the interval, in the between time of being a service and a help to the community, which is so important. And so I'm thankful they're here because they're not here running for a position. They're here doing what they promised us they would do, that is to lead us through affecting change in the community. And so with that said, I'm going to welcome to the stage Barry. First of all, let's give them all a hand for being here to lead us. They're going to do it, but I have to do it because those of us who are senior pastors, we look like we know what we're doing when it comes to community things. We don't. We have people in our church who work in those areas, and they inform us on what we ought to know, and sometimes they talk to us real tough. And so I want Judge LaTanya Arnold to stand, because that's the person who keeps me informed on what I need to know. Praise God. And so I want to give credit to those people in our churches, and not just our church, but other churches who keeps their pastors and leadership informed, like Terry with her pastor, on what we need to know about social engagement. Also, Keisa Smith. Would you please stand, Keisa? I was at another event, and Keisa spoke last Monday, and she did so good. I just announced Sunday without telling her that she's on this lineup. And so she just rearranged everything and made it happen. So thank God for my members who are going to help us, along with the others that will be introduced. We're letting us know as a church. Let me say this to you, because I'm a black church pastor of a black church, and I've been black for the last 50 years, 50 years, and been a pastor of this one church for 27 years, that our community has made it as far as we have because of the power of the black church. Amen. And without me sounding too holy and preachy, we cannot become at ease in Zion now. We got here because of our foreparents doing more than just singing and shouting. They did the work in the community to make sure we affected change for the community in its totality. And so this is us coming together to continue what the baton that's been passed on to us. So help me welcome to the stage who's always doing the work in the community. That is Barry Jefferson, President, Arkansas State Conference, NAACP, and Judge Tawana Bird Manning. They're coming now. Give them a great big welcome.
Thank you, Pastor. Good evening. Let's try that again. Good evening. Hello, everyone. It's so wonderful to be here to talk about voting and educating people. This is so important. This is one of my favorite things to do. And I just believe in it because that's how we grow as a people, when we know and we can make that right decision. So we are here to learn a lot of things and get information and ask questions that you've been wanting to know, because we have all the right people here right today. So I want to make sure you share what we are doing here, make you share it, and you need to post it. Post pictures. Take pictures and post it. Like right now, you can take a picture of me and post it. So that's what I need you to do. Take a picture of me working, posting, okay? Thank you, clerk. So that's what you need you to do is post. Because we want to see the work that we are doing here so someone else can be involved. So we need you to do that for us. We need you to, also we have QR codes around. We need you to join the QR codes. If you can raise them up if you have any QR codes so they can know where you can register or whatever, because we need this information. The other thing, we need you to participate. That is so important. You have to participate to grow and do the things that you need to do. The other thing, we need to know, how did this help you out? We need you to send information back telling us how did this help you out so we can be able to use this next time so we can go out and help more and more people, and that's very important. And one thing about voting is nonpartisan. It's nonpartisan. We don't care who you vote for, we just need you to do it, right? Too many people died, went to jail, got beaten for you to go vote. So you don't have no excuse to go vote. You don't have to pay a dime or nothing. We just need you to go vote, huh? You don't have to take a test or nothing. We don't have to count no marbles in a jar. We don't have to count no pennies. We don't have to count none of that. We just go register and vote, and that's important. So make sure you are registered to vote. Make sure that this is going to help you register to vote. It's going to educate. I travel this state, and one thing I say, three things. Voter registration is good. You get a piece of paper, but it's not good enough when you don't educate yourself after you register. Then the last thing is mobilizing. Motivate yourself. Get mobilized to go vote. Then the other thing is protection. We're going to talk about protection, voter protection. Because, we got some people out here that's trying to stop you from voting. So we need to be educated. We should know why we voting and doing things like that. I brought my son, Asher, here, who is not 11 years old. Stand up, Asher. And he's a member of the NAACP. He had to go everywhere with me because he's going to be registered when he turned 18 because it's that important. So make sure you do that. And Judge?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tawana Bird Manning, and I, thanks to some of you, have the honor of serving as one of the circuit judges here in Pulaski County. I'm one of the 2 judges in juvenile court, and it's my pleasure tonight to introduce 3 of your presenters this evening. First up, she's a Memphis girl, but she's been in Arkansas long enough now. We claim her. She is a graduate of Hendrix College and the University of Arkansas Bowen School, UA Little Rock Bowen School of Law. She's high fashion, but she's also about that business. Please give a hand for my colleague, my friend, Judge Carr Boyd Connors. Next, I will introduce one of my very good friends who decided to jump into a campaign against the son of the person holding the position that she was running for. I think they thought she was playing. She believed she could, and she did. Ladies and gentlemen, the first Black Pulaski County and Circuit Clerk, Terry Hollingsworth. And you've already been introduced to this last person, but when I was thinking about what to say, some of you are old enough to remember the old Timex commercial, "It takes a licking and keeps on ticking." That's my girl, Honorable LaTanya Honorable, who has been beaten and bruised, but kept on fighting. And thanks to your help and the help of our God, she is now the Honorable LaTanya Honorable.
Okay, well, oh Lord, it's hot. And you would think I don't stand under these lights all the time. Let me start by saying thank you for being here. Not just for volunteering, if you are here as a volunteer, but also for coming out to educate yourselves. And I will just preface this presentation by saying this. Before you leave here tonight, we will have encouraged you over and over again to verify your voting status. Even if you've been voting at the same place since you could vote, even if you think you know what your precinct is, even if you think you know how to get to where your ballot is, we're going to ask you to verify that. And throughout the presentation, you'll understand why. I want to thank my pastor for allowing this opportunity to educate the community. I also want to thank my panelists, my co-panelists, for taking out of their time to come and educate as well. So we're moving forward because we're moving fast. Because we got a lot of ground to cover, amen? Now, I'm going to say that tonight. I'm a church girl, y'all. I'm sorry, but it just is what it is. And so, Voter EMT is the name of this presentation. And it is a session, a workshop that focuses on voter education. And we like crowd participation, so I'm going to ask you to repeat after me. Voter education, voter motivation, and voter transportation. All that means is we're going to try to educate you about the process, educate you about why you should be interested in voting and what should motivate you to vote. And then transportation, meaning anything that involves getting you to the polls, whether that's knowing what to take with you to the polls, whether that's actually finding transportation to the polls, and everything that comes with it. And then we're also going to talk about voter protection. And I'm so glad that my soror and Madam Clerk here in Pulaski County was able to come and join us, because she is going to highlight a very crucial element of the election process, and that is absentee voting and how things have changed and what is necessary to do that. We have some Eagle Saints that are here in the St. Luke Church, and I'm sure you have some where you may worship or in your family or wherever. So we need to make sure that if there are individuals who cannot get to the polls, that they can still sound the alarm with their voice and their vote, right? So we want to make sure that we cover that as well. And then lastly, talk about misinformation, right? We see things online, we see things on social media, and it's not always true. It may look like the most valid thing, but it's not always true. And so Madam Clerk is going to talk about that as well. So as we get started, let's go ahead and move to the next major point, which is voter education. And at this time, I'm going to turn this over to my colleague and my sister-in-law, Judge Cara Connors.
Thank you, thank you. Are we standing? Are we sitting? Okay, I'll stand since you stood, but we're gonna just jump right into the presentation. Are they gonna post it? Okay. But one of the first things we need to know is who can vote, right? How can I vote and who can vote? And so the first thing you need to know, obviously, to be able to vote is how old am I? And you have to be 18. You have to be an adult and you have to be 18. You have to be a citizen of this country, and you have to be a resident of the state and county that you wish to cast your ballot for. So those are the first things that you have to know and understand before you even start this process. We're registering high schoolers next month. I think there's the National Voter for High Schools. I think that's the 23rd through the 27th. So there's a mass campaign all over the country, really, to register high school students reaching that 18th birthday before they graduate from high school, because that's where we want to catch them, right when they're about to graduate, before they get out into the world and into college and they, no longer are engaged. Yes, sir.
May I interject?
Yes.
So high schoolers, meaning they have to be 17
Yes.
and they have to be 18 by November 5th.
Right. They have to turn 18 before the election day, November 5th. So their 18th birthday has to be before the election day. So we want to register them within that last year of school if they're going to be 18. So, yes, ma'am. Thank you for that clarification. You can be a felon, but that does not automatically exclude you. But you have to have discharged your sentence. And so there's a process that you go through in order to get discharged and be able to vote as a felon. So you have to complete your sentence. You have to pay your fines, make sure there are no court costs or anything that's lingering from your sentence. Even if you went to prison, many times there are fines that remain from that commitment. And you go to your county clerk, Madam Clerk here, will issue a letter that says essentially you've been discharged and you're clear. Oh, okay. Well, look, I might need to let you do this part of the presentation. So, from my understanding, they go to you all to confirm that that process, yes, has gone through. So once they've done that, then they can go and register to vote. So many times people say, I think I was registering people at my church about 2 Sundays ago, and I had several people to say, I'm a felon, I can't vote. Well, wait. Let's make sure before you make that decision that you are eligible and can do that. So I don't want that to dissuade the community. I know that that is a misconception a lot of times, that it automatically disqualifies you, but there are stipulations and steps that you can go through to get that right restored. So, and that's a big step that we want to make sure people are educated about. You cannot vote in 2 states. So that's another thing. If you're in between residency, you're going to have to check your residency status in order to determine if you are able to vote in the county that you currently reside in. So ensure that you've met those qualifications and that you're not registered to vote in another state. And you cannot be adjudicated mentally incompetent. So that means a court of this jurisdiction has determined that you are incapable of caring for yourself, or you're a danger to someone in the community or others. And so there's usually a commitment that goes along with that. And so you cannot, unfortunately, vote if that has ever occurred to you or someone you know. So those are the qualifications to just get to the ballot. And there's so many other things before you cast that vote we want you to know, but just to qualify, those are some of the first steps that you have to overcome. So I'm going to pass it on over.
Awesome. So now that you know what you need to do to be able to vote, by show of hands, how many people do we have in the audience who have not ever registered to vote? Okay. All right. If you don't want to say, if you're not registered, which, believe it or not, happens, that's okay, because I just want to go over what you need to do, how to complete the application to register. Here's the other thing. It's important that we learn this information to share with others. So as you are registering other people, it's important that you know these things to share with them. So when you look at the voter registration form, there are certain numbers that have to be completed, certain sections of that have to be completed, and that is Section 1 that deals with your name and some other information. You need to complete the form in black or blue ink. Black or blue ink. So number 1 needs to be completed. Number 2 is the address where you live. That must be completed. Number 4 is your date of birth. That must also be completed. Areas 5 and 7 are optional. They are highly encouraged. And those areas are, number 5 is your home and work phone. And, we become so private. We get all in our, I don't want nobody having my phone number. But it really is all out there, whether you know it or not. People can find it, and they will find it and will use it if they want to find you. The reason that that's so important and highly encouraged is that if something is wrong on the registration, someone from the office is going to call and say, hey, we received your registration, but we need this information, or we didn't have this. And so they are making every effort to make sure that it's valid. And so, but if there's no number on there, it's hard to track you down. Number 7 is an email address for the same reason. It's just another way to reach out to you and connect with you to make sure that everything is all right. Make sure to sign the form. You must sign the form, particularly because of laws that dictate what signature governs and all of the things. You need to make sure and sign the form. And then when that's done, return the form to the Pulaski County Circuit and County Clerk's office. So that's as it relates to voter registration. As to address changes, it's very similar, except there are portions on the bottom part of the voter registration form that is specific to changing the address that needs to be included on that as well. And I'm going to, later on when Madam Clerk talks about this, particularly with absentee voting, it's important to make sure that the address is correct. Now, let me interject this before I go on to the next slide. Many of you may have heard or read about the tech issue that happened at the DMV, where people were going to the DMV and they were changing their address at the DMV, but because there is software that pulls some of that information from the DMV for purposes of voting or voter records, there are about 42,000, anywhere between 42,000 and 60,000. We don't know yet. Statewide. For anywhere between 42,000 and 60,000 letters that the DMV is going to have to send out as being potentially affected by that tech issue. So maybe you haven't been to the DMV, and maybe you haven't changed your address, and maybe you've done nothing to change your records. You still need to check. And that's why we're imploring you, we're begging you and pleading with you to make sure and verify your voter status, if for no other reason than for that reason. If you heard me, clap your hands. Next slide, please.
Okay, so this next slide kind of discusses what I've already spoken about briefly, but it breaks it down a little bit more in detail, and it just talks about the steps to restoring your voting rights. If you were convicted of a felony, you have to obtain proof from the appropriate state or local agency that all their requirements have been completed, and proof that that record has been sealed. So if normally that's ACIC, or sometimes you can get that off of Court Connect. They can give you the commitment order to show whether those things have been met or not. If there's an order to seal, if that order is entered into the case, you can print that order off showing that the case has been sealed. Proof of the voter registration department of the county clerk's office where the returning citizen now resides. So submit that proof to the clerk's office, Madam Clerk again, and then complete an Arkansas voter registration application to return to the clerk's office. And then, as we discussed already, that sentence has been completed, all probation has been completed, all parole fees have been completed. You've satisfied all the terms of that
sentence, and you are ready and complete and restored. So you can get that right back.
Let me add this too. You do not have to have your record sealed
Yes.
to restore your voting rights. They are two different processes, and one has nothing to do with the other.
Right.
And I'll give you an example. There was a young man who had been convicted of a homicide. He served 20 years flat, day for day. All he wanted to do, and this ought to be motivation too, so I'm gonna stand up. All he wanted to do when he walked out of the doors of the Arkansas Department of Corrections was register to vote. That's what he had on his mind. And though he will never be able to get that homicide sealed off of his record, he can vote on whether or not there needs to be a law to have people eligible to get records sealed, convicted of homicide offenses. He can vote on legislators. He can vote on city officials, aldermen, city directors. He can vote, even though he'll never be able to get that sealed. So make sure you, and this goes back to what Judge Connors was saying, you know, people are saying, oh, well, I'm a felon. Well, let's kind of flesh that out a little bit. Let's talk about that. You may have been convicted, but are you finished? Because here's the thing. Part of this whole voter restoration process is making people feel a part of the community in which they live. That's a big part. When you don't have a say-so in what goes on and you just have to deal with what other people have said is best for you, that's like taxation without representation. I'm not with it. And you shouldn't be either. And so make sure that people understand the difference between the two. Voter registration and restoring voting rights for felons is not the same, and the process is completely different and separate from having your record sealed.
And the next slide kind of talks about that exact same thing. On the next slide, we just have practical tips on how to restore your voting rights and related questions. And the very first question is, do I have to have my record sealed to restore my voting rights? And Judge Honorable, you already distinctively identified, no, there are two separate processes. Do I have to have a physical copy of my letter of discharge to register? Yes, as Madam Clerk has clarified for us. You must also have an Arkansas driver's license or the last 4 digits of your Social Security number. Am I registered when I turn it in at the registration booth or fair? No, not until the county clerk records records your registration. If you have not received a voter registration card, confirm your registration well before election dates by calling the county clerk. Where do I get a voter registration form? The county clerk's office, DMV, library, disability agency, military recruitment offices or local organizations, or lots of places. At the church, we're going to have some. We have been, especially, I'm a member of St. Mark Baptist Church, where Pastor Pointer is the faithful leader there. And we have been getting fired up over there and registering people every Sunday at every service to vote. And so we go in and we check voter statuses. So there are many opportunities across the city to get registered to vote. So that's not an excuse that I don't have an application, and it's widely available. When do I have to register to vote? 30 days before the election.
Right, the last day is October 7th. The last day to register to vote is October 7th.
And if you are 17 before November 5th, long as you have your birthday before that date, you can still register to vote.
Yes.
Okay.
So what happens when 17-year-olds register? If they register now, and they're going to be 18 by November 5th, is we actually put that status in the voter system, and then once they turn 18, so let's say they turn 18 November 1st, then they can certainly go early vote or wait till election day on November 5th and go vote. But we will send out the voter registration card on their birthday, so they don't have to have that actually to vote, but just letting you know that.
But that confirms their voter status when you get that card. That's another way to confirm. Okay, thank you. Right.
How do you prepare to vote? And it really does require preparation. It requires intentionality. So plan. Be very intentional. One of the first things you can do is you can download your sample ballot. We will have step-by-step instructions in the foyer for you to take with you. We will also be helping you get to your ballot. Now, the ballots are not due yet, so we won't be able to actually pull it up, but we can walk you through that process to help ease your anxiety about how you get to your ballot. And you will be able to take a card with you that has step-by-step instructions. And guess what? You can download the ballot. You can print the ballot. You can write on the ballot. You can take the ballot with you when you go vote. And nobody can tell you that you cannot. There is not a rule, a statute, a law that says you cannot take it in there. And I would encourage you to do that, because many times people get in there and they you get frustrated by the process, or maybe somebody has said something out of the way and it's got you all discombobulated. If you already know, if you plan ahead, then all you really got to do is go in there and check who you've already decided that you want to vote for. The other part of that planning is pulling the ballot so that you know who and what is going to be on your ballot, so that you can do your proper research, so that you're not researching candidates that won't even be on your ballot. Many times people get overwhelmed and frustrated because they've spent all this time researching a candidate that won't show up on their ballot, because we don't really understand sometimes districts and where we fall in those districts, but that's okay. We got something for that tonight too. We're gonna show you how to do that. Figure out what district you're in and figure out how you can tell who represents what district and who's gonna be on your ballot. So research, that's another thing. Another way to plan, figure out when you're going. Now, dear hearts, when you are deciding whether you're gonna vote on election day or whether you're gonna early vote, think about this. Do you all like to drive in torrential rain? Do you know what Arkansas weather is going to be like on election day? Absolutely not. Will you want to stand in line for 2 and 3 hours waiting to vote? The best time to go vote is when? Vote early and vote in every election. 500, Alex. Yes, vote in every election for 500, Alex. Vote early, vote often, and vote in every election. That way, nobody can say, oh, well, it was raining. Or I know somebody who had a death in the family the day before the election. You're not really in a headspace to be thinking about, oh, I got to go vote tomorrow. Most people aren't. I'm not going to say everybody. But you don't know what things may come up. So, prime example, Madam Clerk and Judge Byrd Manning, it was a whole host of people that went to go vote. They went to eat, they took pictures. I sat there and watched them. It was a whole thing, and then they posted about it. I would encourage you to do the same thing. Get you some friends, have a party. Yeah, have a party. I'm not gonna tell you how to party, I'm just gonna say have one. But celebrate it, because it's a right that should be celebrated, and it is an experience that should be celebrated. And it takes the anxiety off, and it makes it fun. Who doesn't like fun? So plan ahead. That way, nothing that happens to pop up will get you off of your game and will ensure that you get to the polls and take care of business.
And so the next slide is just seeing that you print your ballot before you go to the polls and take it inside. And the Secretary of State's website, I think the QR codes that we have going around. When you scan that to check your status and you find your name and your address and your precinct location, when the ballots become available, you will be able to click from that same page and find your ballot for your district or area that you're voting for. So that, I know when I was just running at this last election cycle, that sub-district that I resided in, it wasn't distinctive. Many people thought that they were able to vote for me, and they were not. And so the best way to determine whether you can vote for someone is to go on that link and that QR code that we will have in the lobby for you, and just search your name and address, and you will pop up if you're registered, and then you can literally click your ballot to determine what district you're in, where your precinct is, and who will be on your ballots. Now, there are several ballot initiatives that they have not decided on, and I think we're going to eventually get to that if we have time. And so we do not know what our ballots will look like quite yet. And the last day to do that is actually tomorrow. August 22nd will be the last day for the Secretary of State to determine what will be the ballot initiatives on our ballots. So, because I don't know if you've been watching the news, there's been some hotly contested and challenged ballot initiatives. And so we kind of don't know if those issues will make it onto the ballot or not. But we will know, hopefully, tomorrow what our ballots will look like, and then eventually they'll go out to the counties from there.
I also want people to be aware that if you live in Sherwood, there's probably going to be a wet-dry issue on the ballot. So make sure you do that research. In Little Rock, there's actually going to be a sales tax on the ballot. So make sure you do that research and determine if you want it before it or against it. So those kinds of things. So you got to make sure you vote down ballot. Start at the top, go all the way down, because locally those races matter and those issues and initiatives matter.
Perfect. And this is a good segue into our voter motivation aspect of tonight's presentation. And we're going to go ahead and call Keisa Smith up at this point. She is the Executive Director of Arkansas Advocates for Children and Families. And she is going to give us, just whet our appetite a little bit about things that we can consider, and serves as one element of motivation as to why we should get to the polls.
All right, good evening, good evening. Thank you to my friend. Thank you to Madam Clerk. Thank you to Judge Connor, my sorority sister. So I just wanted to shout that out too.
Of course. Of course.
So let me say this. It is good to be with you all this evening. I am very quickly, because you are getting good facts, and I do not want to interrupt the learning that is happening. But as Pastor noted, he got to hear me talk about some of the statistics that are happening in Arkansas. And my organization, I'm the Executive Director of an organization called Arkansas Advocates for Children and Families. And our focus is on state policy that will help advance children and ultimately help advance their families along with them. And there are some things that we need to be concerned about in Arkansas. I am extremely happy to see everyone that is talking about what's happening on the national level. I want to see everybody electric sliding to the polls in November. We want to see all the pictures. But there is a lot happening in our state.
That's right.
And we have to be concerned, because that is what is going to affect us first. And I do definitely want to thank all of our elected officials and those that are running for office for being here, because we've got some important things to talk about. So specifically talking about children, I want to give you some stats. 22% of all Arkansas children, not just children in our community, 22% of all Arkansas children live in poverty. And when we talk about poverty, sometimes we say, well, we're poor, but we got a car. We're poor, but we've had a house. We're poor, we only get to take one vacation instead of the 3 that we see other folks taking. But the federal definition of poverty and how we are defining it in this case is a family of 4 that makes less than $26,500 a year before taxes. There are over 300,000 children in Arkansas that are living in households like that. That should be concerning to us as to why that is the case here. 29% of children have parents that say they lack secure employment. They do not know if the job they hold today will be the job they hold next month. 31% of Arkansans work, but they say that they do not have enough money to meet their household needs. And by needs, that means food to put on the table, gas to put in their car, or even bigger, they cannot afford their rent or their mortgage. Moving to some of our health statistics, if you did not know, Arkansas is absolutely number one in the number of mothers that are dying giving birth. So we have the worst maternal health rates in the country, especially for Black and brown women. We have the third highest rates of infant deaths in the country. And out of our 75 counties, 37 of them have been classified as maternal health deserts, which mean they either have no OBGYN services or they only have one obstetrician for the entire county. So several women are having to travel up to 45 minutes to an hour to get to an OBGYN. And imagine if you go into labor early and you've got to drive that far to get to your labor and delivery unit. A few more statistics before I depress everyone. We were recently ranked number one in terms of the number of citizens in Arkansas that were food insecure. Equally, during the last legislative session, we weakened child labor laws, meaning that it is actually easier for 14 and 15-year-olds to be in some of our high-risk jobs like our plants that are in Northwest Arkansas because we no longer have work permit requirements as of the last legislative session. Thank you, Governor. So we equally, if anyone in here has small children, you know how hard it is to find infant and toddler care, especially infant and toddler care that you can afford. And equally, many individuals that are now embracing, I'm glad, especially our community is now embracing mental health, but how many individuals have tried to find therapists for children and cannot find them, or cannot find them in a way that they can consistently get the level of treatment that they need? Those are the things that we are facing, but I want to give you one more statistic. Back in 2014, we started cutting taxes pretty regularly in the state. Since 2014 to now, we have cut taxes 8 times, and that has amounted to taking over $2 billion annually out of our state budget. So many of the statistics that I just talked to you about are things that could be addressed if we were to invest that money in the problems as opposed to taking them out. And I tell folks, I mean, I love a good tax cut. I know it's hard to say we don't like tax cuts, but the reality is you're not seeing the benefit of that. The average household in Arkansas of the last tax cut got $74, and not $74 back, $74 off of your tax obligation. And so I say all of these things because it is very great for us to be excited about what's happening in the national level, but we have to be motivated to go out and vote because we have to be motivated about who represents us. And these things can be changed. Arkansas has just over 3 million people. We are small enough as a state that we can make some real changes if we are motivated and invested in making those changes. And so I would encourage you all, when you see individuals that are running for office, go talk to them, go ask them what their plan is for you and your community. And I don't have them with me tonight, but my organization puts out a publication called Kids at the Capitol, and it talks about all of the legislation that happened in the last legislative session that impacts children. It's available on our website at aradvocates.org. For members of St. Luke, I will have them here soon for you to pick up, but we have to be concerned because these things are happening around us, and there are more conversations that will affect us directly by the individuals that we elect. And so I am excited that you're here tonight. I will be here if you have any questions, but let's be just as concerned and just as excited about what's happening on the national level. Let's transfer that in terms of who is representing us locally and who has our best interest in mind. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Keisha. We appreciate you so much. And so that is a wonderful transition into our next section, which is voter motivation. Buckle your seatbelts because we're going to move a little swiftly to get through these next several slides. And media, we may skip a few slides in the interest of time. But why should you vote? Well, let's just think about it. Legislators, they are the ones who make the laws. Judges are the ones who interpret the laws. Those people are elected. I am an elected official. We're all elected officials. These individuals right here are either currently elected officials or will be or are running for office. So they're running as elected to be an elected official. We're the people that y'all should be holding accountable. And I'm not afraid to say that because I need you to keep me honest and accountable. But if you don't participate in that process by voting, guess what? You're stuck with the decisions I render from the bench. And there's not really a whole lot you can say about it because you didn't vote. And not only that, but voting all the way down the ballot. It's called voting the down ballot. And related to that is this thing called undervotes. Ooh, y'all, this made my skin crawl when I was running for office. And you know it, you may not know it as that term, but this is what it is. If you go to the ballot box and you only vote for the president and don't vote for the rest of the stuff that's on your ballot, you did not vote the down ballot and you are creating undervotes. The undervotes are reflected by the number of votes where there was a vote cast, but they weren't cast in all of the elections, in all of the races. It creates undervotes. And so you don't want to be guilty of just voting for your friend who's running for office. Do your research, have a plan, and vote the entire ballot. And now that we're going to give you the tools on how to access that ballot, you don't have an excuse because you will have plenty of time to do your research to vote for all of those individuals. The other thing is, so school board, elected officials, city alderman, city director, my soror, city director, Andrea Lewis is here, elected official. My colleague, Judge Sean Johnson, Judge Tawana Bird Manning, Judge Casey Tucker, elected officials. Molly McNulty is running to be an elected official. She's running for judge. These are people that you need to hold accountable. And the best way to hold somebody accountable is at the ballot box. Because we're hired by the people we serve. And if you don't like the job that we're doing, then you have the ability to hire somebody else. That should be motivation enough to go vote.
So I came prepared to talk about a lot of the ballot initiatives that are going to be on the ballot for 2024. And we're going to just skip through some of the slides. But the unique thing about Arkansas is that we are one of 15 states where a resident of the state can propose an amendment to the Constitution or refer the state law to be amended or put into action by voters. So voters can work together on a ballot initiative and get it on the ballot so that we can decide on a new law or change a current law. And so we have a lot of proposed, and I wouldn't say a lot, we've got 4 potential ballot initiatives that could potentially make the ballot. One that we know for sure is issue 1, which is a legislative proposal. So the legislators can get together and decide on a ballot initiative. And they did on one this legislative session. And it's a constitutional amendment to provide lottery proceeds to be used for scholarships and grants to Arkansas citizens enrolled in vocational and technical schools. And so those scholarship funds that you see from the Arkansas Lottery typically go to 4-year colleges. So this is an initiative for the voters to decide that some of that scholarship money should go to vocational schools and technical schools. So that will be on the ballot come November 1st, that we know for sure because that's already been decided by the legislature. So there are 3 other potential citizen initiatives that have met the minimum requirements potentially that have been submitted to the Secretary of State that facially appear to have met the minimum requirements to have enough votes or signatures from voters to make the ballot. So those three include one being an amendment to the current Constitution that allows for casino licenses and repealing the authority to issue a casino license specifically in Pope County. So I don't know how long ago it was. It hasn't been that long ago, but there was an amendment on the ballot to allow for the state to have casinos in certain counties. So I believe it was Jefferson County, Pope County, and Garland County. Well, the Pope County residents have decided to get together to decide that they want to repeal that license that was originally amended and voted upon. And that is going to go on, well, we'll know tomorrow actually whether that will make the ballot or not. You have to have 90,700 votes to get enough voters to make an initiative to the ballot, to even submit it. And so the Secretary of State, they go through those votes and they determine, or those voter signatures, I'm sorry, and to determine if those signatures are valid voter signatures. And so they have met the minimum requirements of that 90,000, and so that initiative, we will know tomorrow if it's gonna be on the ballot or not. And so that's one initiative. The second initiative that has been submitted is the amendment to the Arkansas Medical Marijuana Amendment. And so that is expanding the current medical marijuana law that's in place now. And so that will allow for more providers to provide prescriptions for medical marijuana. It also allows out-of-state residents to apply for a medical marijuana. Also allows for some growing medicinally if you have a license in your home, so under a certain amount. So if you vote, if it passes, it was interesting. It's a pretty expansive amendment, but that was one that really, part of it that caught my eye. And I said, oh, but it has to be less than 4 ounces. And so you still have to have a card, but it's a pretty expansive amendment. It widens it greatly. And it does a lot of things. I mean, it's very expansive, and so that is one that has met the minimum requirements of the voter signatures. And let me clarify, that is met the minimum requirements of the voter signatures. We are waiting for the Secretary of State to determine if it will be approved or not for the ballot. But they have submitted it, and on its face appears to have met those minimum requirements to make the ballot. So the third, and probably the one that maybe many folks have already heard of, is the Arkansas Abortion Amendment, where it will amend the current abortion ban to allow for abortions at 18 weeks as opposed to none, I believe, currently. And there's an exception for incest and rape for minors in that amendment. And so actually in 2019, Governor Hutchinson, before Roe v. Wade was reversed, he signed into law pretty much an abortion ban in Arkansas. And now this is going to amend it if it makes the ballot. And so if you've been watching the news, you've seen where there's been a lawsuit filed because the Secretary of State has rejected those voter signatures without counting them, and just on its face said you don't have enough votes. The Arkansas Supreme Court ordered that those votes should be counted, and we're waiting for the Secretary of State to say whether there have been that 90,704 votes, voter signatures that have met the requirement and they've been verified as valid voters. So those are the 4 things potentially that could make your ballot in November. So be on the lookout for that. That could potentially, should know for sure tomorrow if the Secretary of State approves those ballot initiatives. So
I just want to say voting matters. all that she just said, voting matters, okay? Because if Governor Hutchinson signed that into law way before we got the current governor, voting matters. And we got to make sure that we have the representatives that have the values that we have.
So we're going to, and I want to make sure that we leave plenty of time to address the absentee ballots, specifically because the form has changed and it's imperative that we make sure that those votes are counted. And so to that end, I'm going to move forward with the presentation and just talk about some important dates that you all need to make sure and remember. Make sure and remember these dates. And if you have not already, go to the Pulaski County Circuit and County Clerk's social media page. They keep you informed. Dates, I steal a lot of stuff because you don't have to recreate the wheel. I'm just trying to get the information out. I don't have to go and research the information. I have enough of that on my day job. So I just allow her information to guide me because that is her primary role. One of them anyway, is to make sure that we have accurate information to vote, and to make sure that we are up to date on that information. So, important dates. September 6th, application opens for November 5th, 2024 absentee ballot. All right, September 7th. I know, that's why I double checked. September 17th. Now, this is a civic holiday, National Voter Registration Day, September 17th. And I want you to remember that because I need you to push it out on social media to make sure that people who aren't registered knows this is a holiday. Go register to vote, September 17th. October 7th is the deadline to register in the November 5th election. Now, you heard earlier that you have to be registered 30 days. Well, the 30th day falls on a weekend, and so the next day, next business day is October 7th. Everybody say October 7th. What is October 7th? The deadline to register to vote for the November 5th election. Now, here's another thing. If for some reason you know of somebody, because I know we're all going to vote, but if you find out that somebody did not vote in the November 5th election, but there is a runoff of some sort, then they can still register 30 days before the runoff election. So, and it's never a bad time to register to vote. Let me just say that. And we don't just take registrations when it's election time. You can register to vote anytime, and we encourage you to do that. Early voting starts October. That's okay. That's okay. October 21st is when early voting starts. So that's why I say you've got plenty of time to plan when you're going to go early vote. And if you just happen to want to go vote with the St. Luke Baptist Church, which would not be a bad idea. If you just want to come and join us, because we make it fun, we're going on the first Saturday of early voting. The first Saturday of early voting. Yeah, a hand clap goes right there. The first Saturday of early voting. So we invite you to come and join us. And if you don't know exactly when we're going or what early voting location, if you follow us on social media, we will tell you what time, what polling location, and what to wear. You can come hang out with us. Now, finally, December 3rd, again, because there may be runoff elections in some of the local elections. There may be runoffs. And so if that is the case, December 3rd is the runoff election. All right. Now, I am going to turn this over to our Madam Clerk, who is going to talk about absentee voting as well as misinformation. If you would, please put your hands together for my soror and Madam Clerk, Terry Hollingsworth.
Thank you, everybody. All right, so I just want to make sure that you know that during early voting, there's going to be 2 Saturdays. So, of course, there's going to be Monday through Friday, 8 to 6 p.m. for you to early vote, and then on Saturdays, 10 to 4. And then, so I want to make sure that way you can do your party whenever you need to do your party and you have enough time to actually vote. And then the last day to actually ask for an absentee ballot application by mail, fax, I don't know who does fax anymore, or email, would be October 29th. So if you know anybody that needs to actually absentee vote, make sure they do it by October 29th. And then, of course, the last day to transfer from county to county. So if you are registered in another county right now and you want to register in Pulaski County, last day to do that is November 1st. If you live in another state, you need to do that. Or if your registration is in another state and you want to make sure it's in Arkansas, make sure you do that by October 7th. Okay, so that's for Arkansas. And then, so if it's reversed, if you're moving or you got a kid moving to another state or something, make sure they look at the state's deadlines to do that. And then once we do that interstate transfer, then we know they're already registered in another state. They don't have to send anything back to Pulaski County. All right, let's go with the slides. Next slide, please. So we're going to talk about understanding absentee voting. Huh? You like looking at me? All right, so what is absentee voting? So it's certainly an option for registered voters who cannot be present on election day. Next slide, please. So in the last legislative session, you had Act 141 and Act 320 that the legislators made sure that they added an excuse, which is Act 141, to, it's the fourth excuse to be able to vote by absentee because of your religious beliefs. And Act 320, it was important for folks who assist with absentee voting, then you must add your name to their ballot application. So if I'm helping Latanya fill out the application, then I've got to put my name on that particular application so that I don't know who's going to check it to see how many you've done. Okay? That was probably maybe the state election commission, but we'll see what happens with that because I'm not checking it or the clerk's office isn't checking it. All right. Next slide, please. Okay, so this absentee request form, the legislators made it more complicated. It is a 2-page form instead of a 1-page form. Next slide, please. So for section, you have to complete all 6 sections of the application. On the first section, it says, please select a reason for requesting an absentee ballot. So your reason is, I'm unavoidably absent from my polling site on election day, or I will be unable to attend on election day because of an illness or physical disability. I'm a resident of a long-term care facility, or I will not be able to attend because of the observance of a religious discipline or religious holiday. So those are the reasons why you can vote by absentee. Then it wants you to select where are you currently residing. If you are currently residing inside the county and you're in which you are registered to vote, you're currently residing outside of the county, or you're in the United States citizen and you're residing somewhere else, and that's called a Uvacava resident, or your spouse or dependent of an active service member of the United States Armed Services. So those are those. Next slide, please. This section 3 says, please select the election in which you wish to, oh my God, I can't talk, wish to cast an absentee ballot. So for this particular election, you're gonna say the November 5th general election and judicial runoff. You only want to check that particular box. Then it says, which option do you qualify? If you don't qualify for any of these options, then you don't say it. So the qualifications are, they're asking, I can't even read it. If you need to apply for elections for all the calendar year. So usually if you have somebody who's disabled, they may apply for all elections that are during that particular calendar year. If you don't qualify for any of those sections, don't do it. Next slide, please. Okay, it says how to complete the absentee ballot application. So, of course, you're going to select how you wish to receive your ballot. And the options are to pick up your ballot from the clerk's office. If you're going to pick up your ballot, you might as well go early vote. Because this absentee process is a complicated process. And it says, of course, it says by email. The only people that can do that are really folks who are in the armed services because they're overseas, and we email them their ballots. And then it says by mail. So if you happen to be like a student that lives in, right now you're in Pine Bluff going to UAPB, but you want us to mail that ballot actually to you to somewhere in Pine Bluff, whatever your residence is in Pine Bluff, then you put it right there, you put that particular address there. I need that slide again. Okay, and so then if you're going to have a designated bearer, that means if somebody's going to pick up that particular ballot for you, then that name has to be printed on here, and that designated bearer has to sign it. Next slide, please. All right, we're moving on. It says, please indicate whether or not you received assistance. And that's where, if you're helping somebody, that's where, if you got assistance, whoever you have to put their name down and their address down there, and they have to sign it. And then it says complete all sections. It means complete all sections below. So then you have to put your actual voting address, and you have to make sure that you read this carefully because it says that I may be under perjury. Let me see if I've got it right in front of me. This section basically has, I can't read it up here, but it basically saying you get a $10,000 fine or you get some jail time if you're not being truthful on this particular form. Next slide, please. So absentee ballot. Once we approve it and I look at your signature, and your signature has to match, your signature on your application has to match your voter registration form. So if you are 80 years old, you registered when you were 18, and your signatures won't match if now you're trying to vote by absentee. So you need to update your voter registration form, or if you have an aunt or uncle or that age, grandparents, they need to update their voter registration form. So the absentee ballot process, we send you this blue envelope. Inside the blue envelope is, take out ballot one. All right, so in the envelope, there's ballot one. That's where you put your ballot after you mark it up. Then there's going to be a voter statement. We usually try to make it in some kind of loud color so to make sure that you read every bit of it. And you got to sign it. And then, of course, this is the return envelope. So then you put your ballot in here, put the voter statement in here, of course that has to be in there. Then there has to be a copy of your voter ID, of your driver's license or whatever kind of ID you have, which actually goes on the outside of the envelope. Then you put all of it back in here, and then you mail it to the clerk's office. That's how complicated this process is. Okay. What happened? Right. Now, what happens if somebody doesn't put their copy of their ID in there? Gets tossed out. All right. If the clerk's office approves the signatures and then the election commission feels like the signatures actually didn't match, they're tossing it out. Encourage anybody that you can to actually go early vote. That's the easiest way. 3 ways to vote in Arkansas: early voting, absentee, and election day. Okay, so, and then of course I know people who cannot get out, they certainly probably need this process. Make sure they do, make sure they get it. Last year, during primary voting, I actually had a lady who's a classmate of my mother, so she's about 80 years old, and she kept messing up her absentee voter application. I took it to her, I picked it up, she mailed it in. She kept messing it up. And then it got to the point where it was too late. I mean, the deadline passed where she couldn't turn it in anymore. And she said, I'm done. I don't want to do it anymore. This is a person who has voted in every election, but she cannot get out of her house right now. So if you know anybody like that, you want them to make sure that they can certainly get a chance to vote, because that's very important to all of us. Let's see. Next slide. Provisional ballot is a way for voters who have arrived at the polls on election day and their vote is uncertain because they didn't bring their ID, they're not on the voter rolls. So if you haven't voted in the last 2 presidential elections, your voter status is going to be inactive. And so if you try to go and vote, you're probably going to do a provisional ballot. Next slide, please. You can vote by provisional ballot if your name is not on the poll or registration list, your eligibility cannot be otherwise established, your identity or eligibility to vote has been challenged by a poll worker or election official. In the last few elections, we do have some poll workers that are actually challenging people's votes because they question where certain people live.
Let me take this opportunity. You can be an active part of this process, not just by voting, but you can be a poll worker. You can get trained. You can get paid to be a poll worker. You might be taken off of your job, but you can get paid to be a poll worker. You can also be a poll watcher to make sure, and this kind of gets to some election protection, but to make sure that things are being done right and that nobody is being denied access to exercise their right to vote. So think about that. And the Pulaski County Election Commission will be out front, and you can ask them any questions you have about being a poll worker, a poll watcher, and there will also be a demonstration out there to show you how the express vote machine works. So make sure and stop by that table if you have any questions about that. They can give you information on how to get the application to be a poll worker.
Okay, so provisional ballots, of course, just because you vote provisionally does not mean that your vote will be counted that day. There is a cure period, meaning that you have to bring a copy of your license or bring your license or ID to the clerk's office the Monday after the election to make sure that you are who you say you were in terms of that particular election. And a lot of times people don't come back. Then their vote doesn't get counted. Election Commission does not have enough time really to send out to folks who actually voted provisionally, send out a letter to you to tell you to come do it. Because by the time you actually get the letter in the mail, then it's probably Monday. And then it's too late. Next slide, please. So voters will submit proof of identity to the county clerk or the county board no later than noon on that Monday following the election. The voter did cast the ballot. That's how your ballot gets actually voted once they realize that you did cast the correct ballot for that precinct or voter's residence, or the voter did cast the correct absentee ballot for the precinct of the voter's residence. So next slide, please. We're going to have some trainings that are coming up. If you have a group that you want to do voter registrations, this is what we're going to talk about, those kinds of, to correctly complete that voter registration form, understanding the absentee process, and combating misinformation. We'll be doing that on Wednesday, August 28th at noon. We need you to pre-register for that. And then we'll be doing it on Thursday, September 12th at 6 p.m. in person. And we still would like for you to pre-register just so we can know how many people are going to show up. And of course, stay connected with us through Facebook, Twitter, or is it called X, or whatever it's called, and those kinds of things. In terms of misinformation, I know I keep getting a text from folks who want to make sure that this is correct or not correct, and it was saying that a poll worker is going to be signing the back of the ballot, and if they do that, then you need to get you a new ballot and that kind of thing. That's not happening. I think the text also says something about my friend just went to poll worker training. We hadn't even started poll worker training in Pulaski County. So that is not true in terms of their ballot not being valid. Ballot. These words that I'm going. So, but the poll worker does have to put their initials on the bag just to say that that ballot has been used. Not putting anything else on it, not discounting your ballot. Your ballot will be voted once you put it through that particular machine. Our elections are secure. We do not do anything online with our elections. So just want to make sure you know that as well. But if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
All right. I just wanted to add this one little point. Someone, and I don't know that I would have believed it if I hadn't seen the text, but there are actually text messages going around saying that you are not registered as a voter. Actually, one of my sorors this weekend, there was a text, just a very nondescript text with a link, with a link in it that said you're not a voter, you're not a registered voter. And she said she hadn't clicked on the link, and I would encourage you, if you get that, don't click on it. It's probably a scam. Phishing, scam, all of it is all the same. It ain't right. And so make sure, again, that you verify your status. We don't know where these text messages are coming from. We don't know where this, misinformation is coming from, but make sure that you verify those things. Thank you. What a wonderful plug. And guess what? We have those outside waiting for you. You can check your voter status before you leave here tonight. All right. So, questions. If you have any questions about any of the presentation, you can feel free to come to the mic and ask your question. If you don't feel comfortable asking your question here in front of everybody, we will have people outside who will be able to assist you with your question. But if you have a question, please come forward if you're not afraid or ashamed to ask it, because there's probably somebody else here who has the same question. Anyone have any questions? All right, here's one. There's one. If you would, please come forward. Thank you so much. And if you have a question, you can just make your way to any of the mics. Judge?
Madam Clerk, you indicated that although your office won't be checking to see how many absentee applications someone may have signed off on, is there a limit to how many absentee? Because if, let's say, I have a family member who's in a facility, what do you call those places? Assisted living or somewhere where she is unable to go, and there are others there, and I assist more than one person with the absentee ballot application. Is there a limit or a rule?
There's not a limit on you assisting with the absentee ballot application. There is a limit in terms of you being, if you sign up to be a designated bearer, and that's 2. But not a limit right now as it relates to you actually helping with the application process.
So I lived in, two different counties in the last 3 years, but I'm here in Sherwood now. Do I need to go, I guess, clear it up with, the multiple
Immediately.
My question is like, do I do that here in this county, or do I do that in one of the other 2 counties that I was?
You can do it tonight. Tonight. Vote early, vote often, and check your status regularly. You can do it tonight. Whatever you need, we got it tonight. We got it. Oh, I see more questions. Come on up, sister. Yes, come on.
Not a question. I just want to make a comment and remind everyone here that votes out of Pulaski County that we're still in the middle of a court case that hadn't been resolved. There have been 3 of them filed, and the other 2 were dismissed, but the 3rd case continues. But some of our people did not vote in 2022 after they had cracked Pulaski County into 3 different districts for national elections. So where we've always voted in District 2, and our friend French Hill has been set up to stay as long as he wants, because they have sent part of the people, especially along this area of North Pulaski County, have gone over to First District with Rick Crawford, and down in the southeast part of the county, those people have gone over to District 4 with Westerman.
So what will help with that, and thank you so much for your comment, what will help with that is checking your voter status, because that will tell you where you go vote. It will give you the precinct number and the address and location of where you go vote. Again, another reason to make sure that you verify your status. Yes, ma'am.
Hello, Queens. How y'all doing today? I'm a little shy. I'm sorry, y'all. I just thank you for your time and coming out. And I was just trying to get an understanding because I had to walk out on a phone call with my husband.
Okay.
So when she shared her information on further like training or workshops, is that specifically on knowing more on like the issues on the ballot of knowing when you put yes, if that means, if you putting the right thing on that, or, if you say no?
It's not talking about the ballot at all. It is basically talking about making sure that if you are a group and you're going to do voter registration, we want to make sure you're getting all the correct information. And it's also talking about misinformation, and also talking about the absentee ballot process, understanding that.
Okay, thank you.
So Latanya and I, we read each other's minds sometimes, but there is a website, and it's in the slide specifically, that will give you all of the ballot issues, ma'am. She walked away. But if you want to educate yourself on who's going to be on the ballot, you can go to the University of Arkansas Division of Agriculture Research and Extension, their Public Policy Center. That website has a plethora of information. That's where I got all of the information about the ballot initiatives and what's going on with that. And so you can find out about those ballot issues. You can also pay attention to social media, because there will be plenty of public forums where candidates that will be on the ballot, that will be presenting and introducing themselves to the public. So I anticipate seeing lots of those panels that will go on all across the community. And just Google, that is a huge resource for me. Even as a judge, I'll put something in and it'll lead me to many of places that will get you information. So just do your homework and be prepared.
And that U of A Division of Agriculture Research, they put out a newsletter, but they also do a really good job at providing unbiased information on all of the ballot issues. It gives you a booklet, like you have a sheet, you found it. You have a sheet where you can do pros and cons of the issue. And again, that's something you can research ahead of time, because let's face it, when you get in there getting ready to vote on a ballot issue, you got all this fine print. It's a whole lot of words. A lot of them I don't understand, and I've been an attorney for over 22 years. I'm just saying it gives you an opportunity to have it broken down in plain English where you can understand, and you can understand the pros and cons and form your own opinion about how you want to vote on that issue. All right. Awesome.
A bit of clarification.
I'm sorry, ma'am. Hold on just a minute. We're on a really tight schedule. If you'll bear with me just a minute, okay?
Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Are there any other questions about the presentation? Any other questions? All right. Then we are going to make sure and make our way into the foyer for us to assist you with finding whether or not you've got voter verification. Hold that up for me, sir. Awesome. When you see this sign, that lets you know that you are approaching a voter verification station. When you go out of these doors, to my left, down that hallway, you can meet the ladies of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, the North Pulaski chapter. They will be registering people to vote, as well as if you need to change your address. You can do that in classroom 1, which is to my left down that hallway. If you need to verify your status, we will be set up in the foyer. You'll see the tables as soon as you exit, or if you go down the hallway to my right, that will lead you to classroom 2. There will also be voter verification there as well. Again, thank you all so much for your attention, your time, and coming out. Please do not let the information stop with you. Be a vessel and let it flow through you to someone else and share that information. At this time, if you would, please put your hands together for the shepherd of this house, Pastor Eric L. Alexander, as he sees us out for the night.
Let's give our presenters a real big hand for the information being shared. We're not rushed. You don't have to leave and go home. We're ending this portion of it, but just know they'll be available in the foyer for further questions, but we wanted to end at the time that we agreed so we don't hold you any longer than necessary. But if you have any further questions, they will be in the foyer to get more clarity on that. Amen. I'm like you. Amen. Come on, let's give them a real big hand. Give them a real big hand. Thank you all so much. Now, there's some more elected officials here. That I want you to stand, and then when you stand, they're going to whisper your names to me so I can get them right. Please stand.
Judge Sean Johnson, Circuit Court, Pulaski County, 14th Division. Molly McNulty, would you please stand? She is a candidate for the Court of Appeals of the state of Arkansas. That will be on your ballot. Molly McNulty. Judge Tawana Bird Manning, Circuit Court of Pulaski County, 8th Division, Juvenile Court. Judge Casey Tucker. She is also going to be on your ballot running for Arkansas Court of Appeals. She is currently Circuit Judge in Pulaski County, Division 2. And of course, you met Kisa. Yes, she is the Executive Director of Arkansas Advocates for Children and Families. Andrea Lewis, City Director for Little Rock. We know we got some Little Rock natives here. And are there any other elected officials in the building that I do not see? Okay. Awesome, thank you.
Now let me acknowledge these pastors that are here tonight and our leaders. Pastor J. Barrington Minix is here from the Gain Street Church. Come on, stand up, Pastor Minix. Give God praise for him. Pastor Stephen T. Robinson from New Zion Grove. Pastor Andrew Baxter, I got it right? Braxter, there it is. I was trying to remember the name of the church. Rose City Church of Christ. Rose City Church of Christ. Come on, give it up for him. And is there any other preacher or pastors that are here that I don't see? Oh, Pastor McTire. Warren Hill, give it up for him. Thank you all so much. Let's stand to our feet to be dismissed. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for all of our volunteers and our workers tonight for participating in such a wonderful time together. There's some more information that I'll share with you Sunday. Each Sunday, moving forward from tonight on, we will have in our observations a political moment, something you need to know moving forward. Bishop Robinson is not here, but his wife, Dr. Robinson, is representing. They're all, who knows where they are, burying the dead, singing a song, preaching a sermon, but they're representing tonight as well. So we thank God for you representing the Antioch Church. And so one of the things we'll be doing is giving information. So this Sunday, we'll be sharing, or the following Sunday per se, information on the Lawrence Act. It's something you really need to look into before November comes around. It's very important. I won't belabor the time tonight, but it's really important that you look into that and share that information. It's going to affect our schools and our educators and our students in a way that is really important for you to look into. So that information and other information, you can ask these Keisha is a great person for that. Tonight, when you go by that book, she can give you information. And so thank you all so much. St. Luke, we're going to the polls October 26th, and we're going to eat somewhere. You know that. So it's going to be a big day of that, and I encourage other churches to do it together. This is an election, one of the most important of your lifetime, and we need to make it count. Amen? Amen. Let's go down from this place in prayer. God, we thank you tonight for our time together. We thank you tonight for those who've come and shared great information to move us forward and to mobilize us in ways that can affect change. I pray that you bless our nation, bless our state, bless our city, even our counties, in the name of Jesus. God, help us to be good neighbors to one another. Help us to be about unity and not division. And help us do those things that will ultimately be good for not just ourselves, but for our fellow man, and that would bring you glory. We go down from this place, but never from your presence. Keep us in your care. In Jesus' name, amen. In the words of Barry Jefferson, I need the pastors to come up here so y'all can take a picture of me and post it.